Welcome back to the artist always known as Alejandro. We are doing March of the Wooden Soldiers characters. Yes, indeed. I did these in pencil first. 3 separate pieces of paper of Barnaby, a bogeyman, Bo Peep and Tom Tom, Stan, and Ollie, and the Wooden Soldier, who I will actually duplicate to make 2 more. But this was my basic idea. I looked at a lot of stills from the movie and have him there, reduced the percentage so he's not as strong in the pencil layer, and here I go drawing him this way. Pretty easy shapes. I mean, the wood soldiers in the movie, they're played by stop motion in one part and then live actors. So I'm mimicking what they would actually be like if they were a wooden soldier that looked like a wooden soldier and have to be played by a human actor. The basic design is pretty cool. It's a great holiday movie. I discovered it when I moved to New York. I'd never heard of the movie when I lived in Michigan. When we moved to New York, on WPIX, Channel 11, WPIX, they would show it Thanksgiving Day, right after the Thanksgiving Day parade. I don't know if I have a Mandela effect thing going on. This foot was bothering me. Come back to it later. Because I thought the movie aired in the evening, but most airings I've seen on nostalgic websites have shown that it airs around 12:30, noon on Thanksgiving Day. I'm like, oh, really? I don't remember. I thought it aired at nighttime, unless they re-aired it. And there's really nothing Thanksgiving-y about the movie. That's right, I made that an adjective. I can do that. You can too. Let's say it all together. Thanksgiving-y. But there is Santa. He shows up at the workshop because he placed an order for 600 wooden soldiers at 1 foot tall, where Stanny misheard the order and made it for 100 soldiers at 6 foot tall. So that really messed up the thing, but the wooden soldiers have a very important part later on in the movie. So there's a basic design of the soldier. Now we're moving on to the stars of the movie. Stan Laurel and Oliver Hardy. Stan and Ollie. I think it's Stanny D and Ollie Dumb in the movie. Yes, this is based on Babes in Toyland, which was originally titled, but the original Babes in Toyland was an opera. And then they made a short movie about it, a silent movie. And they wanted to do this, and Stan was very resistant. He didn't want to do it. Took a few tries to persuade him. I mean, his character gets kind of bopped around, but he actually ends up being a very heroic character and does some funny things in the movie. With his scraggly hair. I had to study images of the two guys very well to try and get that look with my style. I figured his eyes are they seem very closed. That makes sense. His eyes don't go wide, although he can be so expressive. And that smile's iconic. His lips, his lip line goes all the way almost to his nose. But this was a rough sketch I was starting off with. Yeah, pencil for me first is the way to go. I'm still using my round mixing brush at 7 setting on my vector layer, of course. Yeah, this hairdo is really funny on Ollie. Usually has very short hair when they do their movies in their little outfits. But here they're wearing these crazy costumes. And Toyland. Working for a very curmudgeon-y toy maker. I'm like, geez, this is like a fantasy fun world, and their boss was a real D-bag. No other way to explain it. It's like, geez, why are you so grouchy? Should you even be in this kind of fantasy land? I thought this was supposed to be a fun, whimsical place, and you're just a major stake in the mud. It was 1934 when this came out, so maybe different things. They needed someone to play that role. And they worked for the toy maker. Not that well, I must say, but they did, and they're trying to help their old mother, Hubbard, the lady who lived in the shoe, but I guess their sister Bo Peep. Yeah, of course, it took me a few tries. Here I just kind of did this shape for Ollie's mustache. It's very iconic, almost Hitler-esque, I hate to say, but that's the way his mustache was. But that is part of his look. And the eyebrows, I just kind of did these little things, and just a little design to make the cheeks pop. That's just the... Well, I'm going to add some of this ruffle he has around his collar, and just that. I'm not doing the full body. Just as you can see them looking over at the wooden soldier. Now we're moving on to Tom, and Bo Peep, who lost her sheep. They announced their marriage after he just courts her for a few seconds and then kisses her quick. Now the future Mrs. Piper. Just like that, huh? Things move quick in Toyland, I guess. Well, yeah, and then it just became this tradition. They started airing it in the 50s on WPIX 11 in New York. And it just became this crazy tradition. I was enamored with the movie and taken in immediately. I don't know what age. I know I moved to New York in 1980. I don't know if I saw it at the age of 10. Maybe I saw it at the age of 11. And it just transported me to this fantasy land. And wow, these fun-filled songs and this little comedy. A little love story. Some adventure, some scares. Like, wow, this is fun. This is great. It's a good way to usher in the Christmas season. Because listen to me. I'm saying right now, it does not start until Thanksgiving. You can start decorating the tree and doing those sort of things Thanksgiving night. Don't do it beforehand. Do whatever you want. But for me, I can't do it. Gotta respect Thanksgiving. Yeah, it's a gathering to eat, but it is a holiday that I'm thankful for. And Christmas has its enchantment. I'll have to bring back some Christmas drawings and show you how I did them. Well, as you can see by the thumbnail on this, I do color this. I did have to make these clips faster because it was originally almost an hour and a half of stuff. Like, no, I do not want to speak for over an hour. I'm sure you enjoy my moderately handsome voice, but still, I want to preserve it, conserve it for later times. I am a little taken aback right now by allergies. They're pretty high in Florida this time of year. Yeah. Because the only advantage if I was living in a colder climate, I wouldn't have to really deal with allergies this time of year. Because they'd be frozen. I hear they still air this on WPIX. That's kind of crazy. They still air this. Obviously now you can stream the movie or own it. I have a DVD of it. A colorized version, which I actually enjoy watching. Although they add a scene that really kills the pacing towards the end, where Bo Peep and Tom are escaping from Barnaby in these caves, and then they decide to sleep. And then these fairies, these ghost fairies, kind of come around them in this musical number. Kills the pacing. It's like they're supposed to be escaping and trying to find a way out. Oh, let's take a break and sleep. What? Makes no sense. Now, when they showed it on WPIX back in the day, they cut out the opening of the movie where it was, I think, Mother Goose flipping the pages and then you go into Toyland. And they did cut out that musical number where they go to sleep, which was very smart. And the movie's very short. It's only about 73 minutes. So it's not very long. I think they showed it for an hour and a half on WPIX. Geez, when the advent of DVD came around, like, I must own this movie. It's a classic. Now we go to the villain, Barnaby. Silas Barnaby, this evil pilgrim-looking bastard. What are you trying to say about the pilgrims, Barnaby? Why do you have to do that? Well, there he is. He's actually, he's an old curmudgeon-y guy in the town. Like I said, this is Toyland. What is he doing living there? I guess you gotta have an antagonist. He's like the only sourpuss besides the toy maker in that entire town. What gives? But anyway, he's actually played by a 22-year-old actor. Yeah. They made him look like an old dude. Great makeup and hair and all that. And the actor even said in an interview, I read that it's a good thing it was him because Barnaby's a very physical role. He gets thrown around, he falls. It's a very physical role. I was going to have him holding his cane with his hand, and then I started drawing this like, you know what's the point? I leave it here, but it's going to go away. A lot of details to Barnaby. You got to get right. Yeah, see, now I get rid of the hand. I'm like, you know what? I'll just have his arm extend out. That's it. He's looking down upon it. The wooden soldiers that ruined his day because he wants to take over Toyland and marry Bo Peep, make her his wife against her wishes. And he has a ace up the sleeve because he has the note to her mom's house shoe. So unless she marries him, he'll throw her old Mother Hubbard out in the street. What a rat bastard. But Bo Peep's in love with Tom Tom. So uncool, man. But they figure a way around it. You have to see the movie. But did it fill you up with that kind of fun nostalgia when you saw it for the first time? Or even when you see it now? Also back then, it was like you're all seeing it at the same time. Like if you're seeing it live when it aired in WPIX with commercials. It was like a community experience. It's still funny to this day and enchanting in its own way. Some things are a little, The bogeymen, this is the creatures that are underground. They have great big claws, big sharp teeth, claws that they catch you with, which is just sick. So I made my bogeyman a little more scary looking because there's like these face masks they put on the actors and these big fuzzy suits that had hula skirts for some reason. But I really made it look like this ferocious, scary. Like, you're stuck down in Bogeyland with these guys. You're going to be scared out of your patooties. Just showing his claw and... There you go. That's them without the art underneath. So now... we're going to start doing the details. Yep. Same round mixing brush. Detail layers above. Just shading and stuff. I'm going to do my airbrushing and stuff over this, but of course we do our shading right now. For the little details in Bo Peep's cute little hat. The actress who played Bo Peep actually was in an Alice in Wonderland in black and white, which I think came out the year before in 33. Maybe it's 32. Never saw it, but just looking at her filmography and said, oh, wow, I didn't know she did that. Any little curls. These are kind of iconic curls, the way they did her hair. I just try to figure out how I wanted to do these swirls, kind of like this almost vortexy thing, spirography thing. Yeah, yeah. And have her at an angle. I'm not doing it. You have to turn the canvas around. It just works better for me that way. Now, how many of you used to watch this? Do any of you own copies? Chime in. Let me know. I haven't watched it, but today's the day, right? Thanksgiving Day is today. If it's on, check it out. I know it's streaming. I think on Pluto. Don't quote me on that. Pluto TV. But if you got your own DVD, like, well, why would you have your own DVD? Hey, physical media is great. You know why? Because you have it all the time and you can watch it whenever. You don't have to rely on a streaming service. Streaming services are great. But what if they don't have the movie you want? And what do you have going to a streaming service where you got to watch commercials? Oh no, the horror. If you have your own DVD, Blu-ray, or physical media, you got it right there and you can watch it anytime. Big proponent for the physical media. Although I must say, this might diverge off the path, but if you buy Blu-rays, like from eBay, make sure they're brand new. Do not buy a used one. I think I've bought two, and they both had problems. I don't know what it is with Blu-rays. You could buy a used DVD and it works great. But for some reason, a used Blu-ray, I've had problems like, okay, never again. Obviously, used can be cheaper, but Blu-rays are tricky that way. Woohoo! And what else would Bo Peep add a little bit of a... Just checking everything, make sure it's where it should be. I think I put 2 layers for her hair, one above and one below, so they're not gonna, if I erase something or color over something, it's not gonna be an issue. But let me just do a little shading there, just light, not too big. And a little bit to her lips, maybe a little bit to her nose there, ear, and just where Tom Tom's grabbing her. See the fabric shading, maybe little knuckles, and I think Bo Peep might be good. We will find your sheep. Never mind, Bo Peep, we will find your sheep. Do 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 do. Can you hear the songs going on in your head? Yes. They were such catchy tunes. And this guy, Tom Tom. Tom Tom the Piper's son. Looking like Robin Hood. They've had other remakes. Well, they say Babes in Toyland. I know they did one with Annette Funicello. And I think Ray Bolger was Barnaby. I fell asleep on that one. It's like, They had some of the same songs, but they did things a little differently. And it just boring to me. And I think they did one with Keanu. Yes, Keanu Reeves did one. I think sometime in the early 90s. Was it 92? Plus, was it early 90s? And Claire Danes was in it. That's crazy. I saw the cover for it. I was just looking up random things about the story. Like, what? Then they did an animated one. I think in the late 90s also. Never saw it, but I'd just be curious to see different versions of this. If I can stay awake, right? Alright, there's a little feather in his cap, just little details there. We're not going to really bother with the hair. So now I'm going to color. And maybe it's cheating, but I did get that little template you saw of the of Stanny and Ollie and the wooden soldier. See, just to get an idea, and I'm actually going to use my droplet to take the color from an image I downloaded. See if it works. Some of it I used, some of it I didn't. You know, the colorized, it's over black and white, so it creates a strange pastel-like color, which you'll see. You might have seen a glimpse of it in the template, but I had already added black to theirs, and I just tried to give the wooden soldiers almost a flesh tone, not completely white. So I think if they wooden soldiers, you have that wood look. They paint on it, maybe make them look a little human. Again, now when I do this, yeah, there I am. So I just took this image and I was just kind of dropping and grabbing the colors. And I see quickly like the orange should be a little more bright. See, so even getting a droplet was like, well, and so as you can see, I add black. I just did another layer of the exact soldier and shrunk them down a little bit like they're marching in progression here. And made them their own layer. And it just made it a lot easier for me. I just erased what wouldn't work. I figured 3 was enough. 2 just seems like not enough. 3 is just the right amount. You get the idea. And so the good thing is now that I have all these colors, I could just copy, to use the droplet to copy those exact colors. And so we don't need to go into more. You get the idea with the wooden soldiers. Now we're moving on to Stan and Ollie. And these are the colors that they wear in the movie. And I do have separate raster layers for coloring each. Stanny's going to be the top layer, and Ollie's going to be the one underneath. But there's different layers. I always start with the object that's closer, so that'll be the top layer. If you have that underneath and you color, remember, it'll start bleeding. So make sure you decide right off the bat what's going to be the most predominant layer and start coloring there and work your way down, which is what I did. So I did copy from there I think it was like a grayish blue that they made for Stanny's outfit. So I figured I'd put that and the feather on one layer. Now the top of the hat is the next layer, as well as his little hairs there. I have to zoom in, but I'm going to have to fix these later. I'm using my fill tool, of course, but I will fine tune this later. I even do his eyebrows, and that's about it. So I'm grabbing his flesh, but it looks too dark, so let's lighten it. Yeah, there we go. There it looks better. Just for the face, because I want the neck to be its own separate layer. But I will do his little collar. Just made it like a little lighter orange. There we go. Looks like a lei. Now here's another, do his eyes, yes. And here's a little interesting technique. See, if you do that, like I don't want to color that. So what you do is you can get a pen or something, copy that and just make a line there. So when you fill it in, you're not going past it and you can just get rid of the line. So you don't see this line. It kind of has the shirt kind of just goes on and on. So that's a little trick if you're going to try this. I don't know what I was trying to do there. Alright, so we've added extra raster layers now for Ollie. And I'm thinking I'm going to do his hat first, but then wait a second. What's in front of the hat? This little pin and feather, so that must go first. And I took that, but I said, let me make it a little lighter. There we go. Because it's against this orange thing. And yeah, I could have expanded the lines a little bit, but you know what? I'm not going to. I'm just going to keep it like this. And even the lines aren't pretty. They're kind of sloppy, but it's okay. And I might as well put his eye color. I'd give him this dark brown. All right. And even his eyebrows. Sure, why not? There isn't much to that one. All right, moving on to his hat. This burnt orange looking thing. And I think I have a nice version of it. We'll come back to that now. The next layer is going to be the hair. You won't want the hair and the hat on the same layer. Don't do it. So what would be my next layer? And I even put Ollie's mustache on its own layer. It made it a lot easier to control it. And then with that layer, I made it brush strokes instead of this solid thing like I did, like you saw earlier. And then I draw the line there. And I'm going to put that there. And add a few more layers. I was seeing, okay, as I go, there's his mustache back. See, better. It looks like a mustache. And there's this grayish collar, as you can see in the still image. Now, Ollie didn't. Other images I saw, Ollie had a bow tie, but here he doesn't seem to have it in these stills. But I'm committed. I'm going to use the bow tie and just make it at this, like, yellowish color. And then, of course, this burnt orange-ish color. I got to draw the line first on a different layer. That's just the raster layer below. And then we fill in and get rid of it. All right. We're just doing the colors. Now we're going to move on to Tom, and Bo Peep. Look at that. So he's got a lot of green like Robin Hood. She's got some purples, lavenders. Let's try and get this purple thing going on here. Like, it is very pastel-y. That's right. I made that an adjective too. Those blue eyes, I made them a little more magical, I would say. Well, and if this isn't a Thanksgiving tradition for you, well, you know what? Why don't you make it one? It is a good transitional movie to Christmas. Now, I did her flowers a little differently. I didn't do these little... I just did like a few in the front. And then then I made an extra layer and added these little sprinkles of green on the front. Yeah, and then if her face color is like, no, Bo Peep is not going to be dark. I wanted it to be like very light. There we go. Skin should be very light. Just trying to find that happy medium. It took a few tries. Like, that's just too fleshy, I thought. But there we go. That's nice and Bo Peepy. Bo Peepish. Not the peepee. And a lot of layers for her. We'll build down. So we're not going to have hair on the same layer. Nope. We must not, because I'm going to add shading and they can't do it. And even the color of her neck can go there. Here's another thing I almost forgot. You got to go back to the bottom layer and then, because you got to add white to the eyes, because if you don't, you're going to have that gridded thing underneath. So you do have to add white to the eyes. But if you do the gridded thing, you can actually see the white. You can't see it on a white canvas. No. And then I borrowed this purple, but I made it a little lighter. There it is. It does look from that era. I colored her layers, and also I put Bo Peep and Tom in their own folder. So if I ever needed to move their entire drawing, which I did, I just click that layer and move it around instead of clicking each single raster and vector layer. You just click the folder. I'm about to say you click the folder and you can move stuff around. I did draw them larger. when I was drawing them, and then I shrunk them down into the positions I wanted. That's what I did a lot in my Meow Meow book. You get more details if you make your drawings larger, and then just shrink it down. Still retaining great detail. So I kind of borrowed what was going on with his costume from his still image over here. I think I added my own green. I was having trouble to figure out where is this other green here. I think I just erased the whole layer and started fresh. There we go. It's like a foresty green. It's kind of dark. I have no idea what I'm doing here. I was adding some brown to his eyes and eyebrows. Alright, I had to start that all over again. I know this video is longer because I'm coloring. Yeah, his hat was... I just kind of kept this lighter green. It doesn't seem to match. The green on his hat was a very... almost like a lemony green, but I went for a different green. I can do that. I'm the artist here, right? As are you. Remember that. Yeah, as you keep going on these layers, you see like some things need to be filled in a little more. You can see that's what I'm doing. Adding those on their own layer, and then the shirt on its own layer. Even the buttons were the same color. And there's Bo Peep and Tom Tom in color. Yay. Now Barnaby, there he is standing with Stanny and Ollie in the doorway. That might be when he's blocking them as they're going to work for the toy maker, and he rips off a portion of Ollie's mustache. How cruel. But I start with the buckle, right? That makes sense because it's in front of the hat. So we start the buckle as the top layer and then work our way down. Now what would be next? His eyebrows, yes. His eyebrows would be a good smart layer above his skin. I kind of copied the brown in there, but copying it from there, it's not always right. I got a good hint of it. Woo! Alright, moving on to another layer. I always like to turn the layer on and off so I know what I'm doing. Let's add some more. And that'll be his coat. Lapels. Alright, let's move on to the next layer. I think this is the skin. I copied the skin from him and it's just too dark. There we go, that's more like it. But to fine tune some stuff. Much going on here. It's kind of weird working with the actual picture in there. Is it cheating, Poppy? Well, no. I mean, this is a drawing you want to make. I mean, there's no rules here. We're here to have fun and enjoy drawing, and if you're going to use something to help you get your art moving along like that, why not? I'm trying to go for the effect of as close as possible to the real thing, but in my way. You could do your own interpretation. You had to draw that line where I'm going to color in his jacket. Smart maneuver. And I had to rethink some stuff here, like, oh, and I think I made the big mistake of putting his neck and his face on the same layer and didn't realize it. We're moving on. We're going to add a layer there. And then we'll droplet his beard and use that for his hair and sideburns. And of course take that out so I could add my white. See, there you go. Very important. Especially when you draw something like that. Alright, moving right along. It's time for the bogeyman. I found one still image. You got kind of an idea from the still image. I just thought the flesh, that bright fleshy color was too much. I wanted to make him a little darker. You gotta think, the bogeymen live in a dark world. They're in caves all the time. They're not gonna be having vibrant skin. It's gonna be dark and moldy. Like, this is a funny element. Like, you add this whole, the second act, once they have these bogeymen, it's like, whoa. And then they invade Toyland. Oy. Bogeyman doesn't have many layers. I kept the color that was on there. Then I have to draw the line across, because I'm going to have a layer for his forearm reaching out. Make that layer underneath. And I decide I'm going to make that layer its own layer, the forearm, and then his body fur will be another layer, and then his black wig. To fill in these little gaps. See, when you do the fill tool, it doesn't get everywhere. Little spots do show up. But then you could do the fill tool differently. There's a enclose all layers, and there's an enclose and fill, which I'll use later. And then I do add some layers for his teeth, the inside of his mouth, and his eyes. Just a hint of grayish. So his teeth wouldn't be really nice and white. They're going to be ugly teeth. And then just a little grayish in the mouth, and his eyes have got, I gave him like these yellow. In that area. Fill in these gaps and getting there. I know, this is a long video. Are you still with me? As Mick Fleetwood would say. Are you still with me? Hope so. Not that this has anything to do with it. Alright, so now we have everybody colored in. Now it's time for the shading. As you can see on the right, I already made my extra layers and clip them to the layer below. So remember, when you're going to do any shading or airbrushing, you do the clip to the layer below. So you got to put a layer above it and clip it to the one below. So this way, any of the stuff you're going to be coloring in will not bleed into the layer below. So you can see I'm adding, I select the layer with the droplet, and then I just bring it down to make it a little darker depending on the shading. And so of course this top layer does have the little leaves. But I went to the layer there, the back of that. See, there would be shadow. And I go back up for this layer for the hat. But I realized, look at that, I did a big boo-boo, didn't I? Yep, I put the layer of the front of the hat with the layer of Stanny's hair. Big no-no. Just have to work around it, that's all. Be very careful when I add these layers for the shadow of his hair. And just add a little more details to the hair. Alright, next one is his face. Toyland, Toyland, do 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 do. Gotta have it humming. Did they ever sell a soundtrack to that? I never really even looked. Hey, granted, it's a short movie, so you could play the music. Should Barnaby have had a song? I don't. I don't know if any of you saw that new Snow White. Giving the evil queen a song was a big no-no. Just did not work. Didn't make her evil, it made her silly. But let's not get all divulge or fall down that rabbit hole. We're working on wooden soldiers and Stanny and Ollie right now. This is fun. We're having fun. It's all positive energy. Doing this to have a good time. Know that you can draw as well. I think this is the final layer. I didn't add too much, just some stuff there. That's it, really. You don't need to do a lot. And I started trying to do this airbrushing right underneath just to make it, just to give it like a little bit of a blend into that. I tried the blending tool, but it wreaks havoc. So I just stick with the airbrush just to give it that kind of like blurring effect. Moving into Ollie, I did color in his little feather there. Added some lines. They were a funny duo, and I had just a little glint, do the airbrush. Just to have a little sparkle in the eye. It actually took a few passes. There we go. I just needed a hint from Ollie. Alright, we start with the first layer, which should be the feather. Don't add too much. Just a little accent. And move on to his hat. Yeah, forgive my voice, it's... Whew. With the allergies, they were just like high in ragweed and stuff like that. Oak. Wind is blowing. It's very dry. Hasn't rained in a while. The allergies went haywire. Let me do that layer a little darker to just add some little lines in his hair. Yeah, that's the ticket. And I had a little brightness to the front, like there was light coming to his right. Always like to make sure I'm on the right layer. What I might accidentally do sometimes is I'm actually on the color layer shading, which is a big no-no, because then you can't, you'll be bleeding into the other layers if you're not careful. Just be aware, make sure you are on the clip to layer below layer. But, notice it always has that little red line going down. And I like to also make it uncolored. See, I color my layers that I'm coloring on. So if you just make them without color, you know exactly, oh, that's the clip to layer below for my airbrushing. Or however you want to shade, but airbrushing I think gives you the best shadow effect. And let's add a little shade there. Shade there. Yeah. And then I'm adding this little airbrush there, and I'm going to do the same for Stanny's arm. Ollie's arm. I'm going to get my guys. There we go. It's good. Now it's time for Bo Peep and Tom Tom to get shaded. I have all their layers ready. No reason to go through all that. You know what to do. Just check and make sure I'm on the right one as I start shading. Her first layer doesn't need a lot. Maybe the edges of her hat, and the next layer will need some. But yes, I made a mistake, didn't I? You saw that, right? I colored the flowers on the same layer as the hat. Poppy, Poppy, Poppy. How could you do that? See? Big mistake. Huge. But we find a way just to dance around it. I think my layers are kosher after this. Let's see. Okay, now we move on to under the hat. Just make it a little darker with our little lines there. See, gives it a little more dimension. And now her head. And see, they had a little shadow because her hair would add, maybe create a little shadow there, and shadow from her hat, and then just kind of lines there from bone structure. I even added like just a hint of rosiness to her cheeks. See, look at that, just a little pinkish hue because she's so rosy. And blend them in a little bit because they are blending. All right, and what's on the next layer? Her hair. Good. You just play around and see. This is why you gotta have the other locks on their other layer. See, this way they don't bleed into one another. You definitely remember before when I colored and everything, all my details layers were turned off. Because if you do that, if you fill in with the detailed layers there, it'll make everything so blotchy. You would have a smooth color. Forgot about that. But just to note, if you turn the video back, you'll notice all my details layers were off. With the exception of one character, which I will address in a little bit. But it's minor. Alright, Bo Peep, moving down the line. Yep, shading in the neck area. That's because you can see that would be in shadow. This will be a little bit darker. There's not much to do here. Maybe just a little bit of accents under her locks. Down below there. And then, of course, her little purpley, lavendery dress skin, little shade where Tom Tom's hands are. Or hand. It's just one hand. Where's his other hand? On her back, on her neck, stroking her locks, her hair. Get your heads out of the gutter. This is Thanksgiving. Yeah, it's been a long time. I mean, Thanksgiving dinners with family have been... It's hard because we don't live near family. But as a kid, I think I remember us decorating the tree Thanksgiving night. Not sure. Live tree or fake tree? My mom had a great one that she and I decorated for many years when I was a young lad. And it was one of those ones where it had the pole and the holes in it. So you would put the tree limb attachments, they were like this spirally metal wire that you just kind of push in there, and then you could spread the branches out a little more and give a more fuller effect. It was a wonderful tree. I love putting it together with my mama. Just a few more things here. I think I put some, like if it's a green vest, two things are on the same layer, which is, it's okay. It's you'll see, it's the layer underneath Bo Peep. See? Yeah, that green's on the same layer, which is okay. In this case, they can kind of blend in together. See? Easy fix. We made that a little too dark. Let's blend it in there. The blending tool I used sparsely this time. But in real time, each of these things took a long time. Averaging like 15-20 minutes. But Bo Peep and Tom Tom look pretty good. Now Mr. Barnaby and the Bogeyman. So I do start from the top. When you're shading it doesn't really matter what layer you start on. They're all safe. But I just started with his beard. There's really not a lot to shade on the hat. I kind of just made things a little black. Because it's already a dark layer. See, I covered up some of my details, but I will blend that in. So you could, there we go. Just to lighten up so you could see my lines. I pulled out that time in the line work. I want you to see them. Don't you? I'm sure if you're drawing this with me, you want to see your line work. If you're doing it, you may very well have less lines than me. Remember, it's your drawing, your style. Do it the way you want. Post it in the comments below. I'd love to see what you guys come up with. Really, I do. Art is so freeing. It's our natural state. There we go. So we darken him. See all those little things? It's great. When you have an older character or one that has just such a lot of this, you can just add all these little accents. It's so fun. It's a chance to really add more shading to these areas, especially when he's like this kind of character. Make it a little darker there. See? I know those are on the same layer, but it doesn't matter. We're just kind of adding a little bit. Just adds that extra something, something. Then I got to just fill in these little spots. Now, when you fill in, you use the original color. Even if you're going over a spot that's shaded, you have to use the original color that you filled in with. So remember that. If you have to do the enclose and fill, or if you're just filling in a spot like I'm going to do here, see? You have to pick the original color. Because it'll fill in the gaps. It'll know that you have a shaded area, and that once you fill it with a regular color, the shaded area magically reveals itself where it should be. Now, normally, the stuff on his neck, I would have each section its own layer, but for this purpose, I just said, just let me leave it here. I can reduce my airbrush and just fine-tune the details. See? What now? I'm going to do my little airbrushing yet to that little... Whoop. Be careful. Since I have the same color, I'm just going to do that just so it kind of blends in. Looks nice, doesn't it? It is, isn't it? Barnaby says Barnaby. You know, the bogeyman, at first I had a lot of these layers here when I filled it in. I had a lot of details on the same layer, so I had to go and fill in a lot of gaps. But now, here's another character with all of these accented lines, and now I can shade them in. Look at that. It really pops. He's more scary. If they had someone that looked like this in the bogey land, ooh boy. When Bo Peep sees the bogeyman for the first time, she lets out a very convincing scream of panic. It's good acting on her part. But they are kind of laughable. You can see the zippers on some of them. But there's so many of them. They had a lot of different varieties of masks. Like, you know, they all had the standard furry body with the claws, this kind of vampire-esque gorilla face or something, and then the big furry mane on the back for their head. And I just added some of these streaks, but then I just blend them in so they're not as pronounced. You know they're there. You don't need to see them in that great detail. And of course, I'm now going to add the airbrushing element. There we go. Across the board. Good. They're just not these kind of figures floating in space. I was thinking of adding another bogeyman, but I'm like, I'm done. One's enough. Alright, who else needs to be shaded? The wooden soldiers. So we use our droplet, get the color we need, and just make it a little darker. See? See, my first layer for this wooden soldiers is their coat. I think I made some mistakes in some layers. I think one of them I combined the leg color. Like the front leg marching forward is a part of a layer, but the back leg would be its own layer, right? Right. So you start thinking in those terms, it makes it a little more easy. It makes more sense in a way. You don't, if you have a layer that's forward, like a leg, you don't want the leg behind it to be on the same layer because they will bleed. You're adding the details, the shading. Obviously, there's stuff here I just have barely scratched the surface on in Clip Studio, but this is my presentation to you, my Thanksgiving gift to you. So you can follow along. And here I just added that. On the bottom of the shoes, I just did like a gray, light gray to just show like the bottom of the sole. So it's not just this flat block. And I did it across the other way, as you can see there. I may have even added a hint of airbrush to the front of the big hat, just so it's just not this big black Q-tip thing. Are you still with me? The great Mick Fleetwood would say, he just inducted Bad Company to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And if you're interested, you can always listen to my Rock and Roll Hall of Fame show. I am a radio DJ from time to time on Spreaker.com and host my show Maximum Tunage. Just a playlist of tunes, and I always do the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And you can listen to it too. I should put a link in this. Hey, cross promotion, man. I put together a fun show. Just as the DMB Paisan. Yeah, just a little shading, just light. I like the wooden color. And making the eyes almost the same color as that is pretty... I like doing that. I want to make the eyes white. I want to maybe really look like big toys. Now, as a kid, I would have loved if they had action figures of these guys. Maybe they have them now, but back then they did not have action figures. I would have loved to have had all these guys. Oh man, that would have been something. Depending on their size, obviously I could have had a crossover with them in Star Wars, or the DC superheroes and Marvel superheroes, or Star Trek. Even the Wizard of Oz. That would have been a fun crossover to do. Yeah, I never really looked. See if they have action figures like this. It'd be wonderful. Ah, see, the belt buckle kind of got away from me, so I got to fill it in. Just doing some spot checking. I see that there's red over there on the edge. Fill that in. Checking all the wooden soldiers. Now see the one behind him has some gaps. But each soldier is an exact duplicate of the layer above. Smart move. And you just change the perspective. This is where I added, this is where I added just a little hint, like light sources coming off their right, just to give their hats a little more dimension. And here I was debating about, this is nice the way it is, but should it have some kind of background? I was thinking like a cloudy blue thing, let's see. And I'm like, yeah, without, I was struggling. Should I just leave it? But I do like the hint of blue. It adds a certain whimsy. Well, I stick with it until the bitter end. There it is. Full page drawing of my salute to the March of the Wooden Soldiers, one of the most enjoyable fairy tale comedies, musicals of all time to get you into the holiday season that would air on Thanksgiving Day throughout many decades. I hope you enjoyed following along with me, with the gang here. It was really big fun putting this together for you on Thanksgiving. So you all enjoy your Thanksgiving, like and subscribe, and I will see you on the next video. Until then, keep creating.